Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
This week on the Kindness Project, we talk about football, Comic-Con, and we have part 2 of our interview with Mark Halls from FirstStep.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a man who's drinking a coffee that I made for him.
It's really strong. It's really strong. And I'm joined by a girl. That's how strong it is. I'm joking on it. I'm joined by a girl who likes making the supermarket-related puns in Dungeons and Dragons. It's Charlotte Dames, and we're joined by the man, the true legend of the Kindness Project, the man behind the scenes, and the man who actually saw Tottenham lose over the weekend. It's Russ. How are we doing, Russ?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Are you over the football yet or not?
I am. That was quite high up in the London Stadium. So
Charlotte, it was funny when we got to the football stadium. We went to listeners. We went to the London Stadium, which is in my eyes always going to be known as the Olympic Stadium because that's where Queen Elizabeth Park. But you know they called it the London Stadium now because it's up where it's Dan's home, stuff like that. And I said to Russ, the tickets that we'd got were quite high up in the gods. What I didn't realise is literally it was at the top of the stadium, and I didn't realise how bad Russell's fear of heights was. So literally every time somebody stood up, I was just like, no, I'm staying down. And the funny bit was we was on row of seats 74. So we were 74 seats up. Russ went, can we take the lift? The lift only takes you up to 34. So we still had 50 odd seats to climb, didn't we? So yeah, apart from the heights and the lift not going all the way, how did you enjoy the football?
I did. I really enjoyed getting back to live football.
Yeah, it was good. What are you looking for? Unofficial question of the podcast. What are you looking forward to doing? Like now the world is a bit more.
Well,
open.
you know what ran this not this weekend. The weekend just gone. Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, and you went. Tell us about Comic-Con.
It was really good. Like there was reduced capacity. There was less like vendors there, and there was less stuff there, obviously because of COVID.
I'm literally shivering at how strong that coffee is. What? How many spoonfuls did you put in that coffee?
2, like I usually do.
2?
I usually do.
2 spoonfuls of instant coffee. You know it's only meant to be 1.
No, it's 2.
I'm going to have to tear myself off the wall in a minute. It's so strong. Anyway, Comic-Con. Tell us about Comic-Con.
And I always love the artists. I always love the art stuff.
Yeah.
It's my favourite bit. Other than the cosplayers, which is really good as well, the artists and all the stuff they're selling is always it will take you hours to get through, but honestly it is well worth the time. Yeah,
you know what, independent art at Comic-Con is always good, isn't it? I think it does give a really big showcase to independent like sort of graphic artists who are doing amazing work. So I absolutely agree with you. It's brilliant.
I mean, it wasn't as like spectacular as it usually is, but that's because obviously it reduced capacity.
And you said they had a retro gaming section as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was just like you went and you asked if you could borrow a game to sit and play, and there was someone playing Breath of the Wild, which was good. Not Breath of the Wild.
What do you mean borrow a game?
Like they had a little desk where they had not Breath of the Wild. It's the Zelda one with the talking boat and. I know.
Okay, fair enough. A Zelda game.
Game.
So what did that? They had consoles laying around, and you just borrowed a game and plugged it
in. Yeah.
Oh.
And they had GameCubes as well. I love the GameCube.
Did you have a Commodore 64? That's what I'm worried about.
I don't know if anyone would bother the Commodore 64.
How dare you? That is an ultimate game machine, isn't it?
Okay. How long does it take the game to load?
25 minutes.
So would you
4 days?
Would you wait for 25 minutes? Bear in mind, you've got 5 hours to do this entire convention. Would you wait 25 minutes?
The right answer is depends on the game. if it's a game that I know that I could play for hours, definitely.
If it
If
was
I do it in the middle of a Comic-Con, not sure.
Sensible World of Soccer.
Well, that was on the Amiga, Russ. That was
I
on the
played-
Commodore
I
64.
played the 45 minutes it took to load that.
Well, I've got to tell you this story, right?
Is it about the afro? We all know about the afro.
What about
It's
the
an
afro?
embarrassing moment in your lifetime.
What? Sorry, what indication did you have that I was going to talk about my afro?
The only photo I have of you in that afro is you sitting in front of your Commodore 64.
Ah,
So
right,
whenever you
okay.
mention the Commodore 64, I think of that photo.
No, funny enough, there is another photo knocking around somewhere. I think Mum might have it of me when I was 17 with that afro. So same
That was
age,
such a bad afro.
same age you are now, collecting my record of achievement from school. So collecting, but the problem with it was I also had a big green coat that was definitely not fashionable, and for some bizarre reason, I hadn't taken my coat off to collect me award. So I've got an afro and a big green coat.
Oddly enough, I remember that photo.
Yeah, it's not the best look in the world, to be honest. But let me tell you a story. Now, I don't think it's one I've ever shared on the podcast, which is unusual. 200.
Is it one you've ever shared?
You two will know if I've shared it. So let me tell it. About 3 years ago, I'm in a pub. And it's a gaming bar in Stratford. And there's a Christmas party going on because it was around Christmas. I think it was either 2017, 2018. I've been out for drinks with some friends. We ended up in this gaming bar, and there's a Christmas party for a gaming company going on in this gaming bar.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you the story?
I don't think so, no.
So they're having a Christmas party, and what they've done is they've paid for some entertainment to come in and entertain this bunch of geeks, basically, at this Christmas party. So anyway, this guy walks in, this musician, Russ, and he says, I'm going to play a few songs. Some of them you'll know, some of them I wrote, and you'll love it. And a lot of his songs were like gaming music and covers of music in games.
Right.
And then he went, I am going to play you the song that I wrote and that I'm most famous for. And we're going, oh, I wonder what that is. What game's that going to be from? And it was a song called Goal Scoring Superstar Hero from Sensible World of Soccer. But Russ is nodding. Nobody on the podcast can see it.
Yeah.
They had the song for the game that just went, I'm a goal scoring superstar hero. I'll get my head down and play with it. I can't even remember the words, but it's amazing. YouTube it, goal scoring superstar hero. And he did a live version of goal scoring superstar hero.
Do you know they've converted that Sensible World of Soccer for the Windows 10?
Have they?
Yeah.
We don't have it.
I was looking at downloading it on Steam.
Don't be ridiculous. Why would we download it for Windows when I've got it on an emulator? I don't need to. Anyway, we have gone super geeky this episode, and we need to get on to question of the podcast, which is, what is next on your bucket list? Now, clearly, Russ has ticked off go really high in a football stadium of his bucket list. Charlotte's ticked off get back to Comic-Con on her bucket list.
I need to create a bucket list to tick things off of first.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether the concept of bucket list is, everybody's got, but everybody's got something that they would love to do, which is next on their list. So what's on yours, Russ?
My next one on my list, I spoke to you about it a couple of weeks ago. I want to visit the Eden Project.
It's good.
That's top of my list of things to do next year.
The Eden Project is amazing. I particularly like the gym bar at the end of the Mediterranean dome.
I don't think I'll be trying that. I don't really drink, but I'll definitely be enjoying some of the.
Well, after the inside of my mouth's been taken off by this coffee, I don't think I'll be drinking ever again. What's on the top of your list?
I'm going away. this week to Brighton.
Yeah.
So it'll be my first holiday without parents or teachers.
Party!
Since when has that ever been my
No, you're not going to party hard, are you? Well, you might party hard.
I'm going to take 2 books with me for 4 days.
You might party hard with a cup of tea and a couple of books, but yeah, all good. I tell you what, I feel like I'm partying hard drinking that coffee. Honestly, and my next, I don't know. I think the next thing on my bucket list is what physical challenge I'm going to take on next, and I'm yet to decide. I don't know whether it's going to be an international marathon or half marathon, doing it somewhere else, doing it in a different country.
You've already done
I have done Paris, but I'd like to probably do New York. Somebody sent me a link to the Reykjavik half marathon in Iceland.
That was Alison Hogan, wasn't it? That looks interesting.
Yeah, so that might be on my list. But I also want to do the 3 peaks, which is the 3 largest mountains in the UK in a day. So if I can get a crowd of us to do that, that might be.
I will not be doing it.
No,
never.
So your ones go to the Eden Project. Your ones go to Brighton. My ones climb up 3 big mountains in a day. Listeners, we'd love to hear what your next thing you'd like to aspire to do, the next thing you want to take off your bucket list if you believe in bucket lists. And you can get in touch with us using the following resources.
On Twitter, we're at Ola Kindness. On Facebook, if you type the Kindness Project into the search bar, we should come up. Same applies for Google. Our email is ola@thekindnessproject.co.uk. Please do not try and look us up elsewhere. You might find some chaotic results. Ta-da!
Did we miss anything, Russ?
The website?
Website
www.thekindnessproject.co.uk, but I did mention Googling it, so I thought that would suffice. But
yeah, and we're all over the show. And we are, again, thank you for everybody who's listening to the Kindness Project at the minute. We are posting some amazing numbers, and we'd love to hear from more of you. So feel free to get in touch. Send us your stories of kindness, send us what's going on in your world. We love to communicate with our audience, don't we, Russ?
We do.
Could he have said that less enthusiastically? I'll give you another go, Russ. Try it really enthusiastically. We love to communicate with our listeners, Russ, don't we?
Yeah, brother, we love it, man.
Yeah, brother, we love it, man. What was that? Right. And now I want you to try it really unenthusiastically. Russ, do we like to communicate with our listeners?
Yeah.
Not even a word. Not even a word.
Yeah.
Just the sounds. Oh. All right. Let's get.
you can see his eyebrows prepping for it as well. Like, I know the listeners can't, but I was sitting there watching his face and his eyebrows just.
How'd you do an eyebrow prep for unenthusiasm? I don't know. A bit like that. Let's move on to the next part of the show, which is, as ever, is
Kindness news.
and we're going to have a and we're going to have a we're going to have an argument at the minute because you just sort of made too much of your part. And this
in the forest.
Kindness News Teen Edition. When the pandemic started back in March 2020, Sebi Hall gave his iPad to a friend so they could see. It became his first random act of kindness, and he's been doing them every day since. The 18-year-old has walked neighbours' pets, watered gardens. I thought I was going to go walk with neighbours' pets and walked gardens. Walked neighbours' pets, watered gardens, posted mail for isolated locals, washed cars and baked cakes for nurses. He's handed out PPE, collected unwanted Halloween pumpkins, turn them into soup and pies for needy people, and give them warm coats for the homeless. The teen has also handed out lottery tickets bought with his pocket money to strangers, given 100 roses to 100 women to make them smile, and helped at food banks. Along the line, he's also raised £28,000 in donations, which is given to countless charities. The money has paid for 300 families to get adapted IT services, funded the disabled rugby team, paid for 3 IT suites for young people, bought communication kits for kids at 4 specialist schools, and set up a disability art hub. Sebi, who has learning difficulties and a rare chromosome anomaly, has done at least one thing every day, completing more than 1,600 in total. He was inspired by his proud mum, Ashley, who asked him to think about what skills he could use to raise cash. He had one simple answer: I can be kind. Oh, I love that. Sebi from Lichfield, Staffordshire, said kindness is my superpower. I'm not stopping. I want to raise more money and make more people happy. That is absolutely amazing. Mum Ashley, a drama teacher, said it's hard for any young person to go up to random strangers and speak to them, and even harder for Sebi because he finds it really hard to find the words himself. But somehow he found the inner strength of being kind. It's given him a position within his own community and a confidence that he didn't have before. What he's done is absolutely incredible, and there's a real impact on society. I suppose that's one of the things that we've talked about in the podcast a lot. Kindness is practical. It isn't an esoteric concept. It's stuff you can actually do to help people. Initially, when his school closed, Sebi was upset not to be able to speak to a friend who didn't have a laptop over video calls. And that's why he offered up his, and then his mum suggested he might help more people by raising money to buy more than one device. Seb started with 10 sponsored acts of kindness every single day for 10 days and raised £1,000. He bought his friend a device at the end of the 10 days, but he continued, enjoyed watching other people smile, and he just wanted to carry on. Just amazing stuff, Sebi. Well done, Sebi's mum, for inspiring. Brilliant work. We should have more people like Sebi in our world because it would be a better place, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
And then let's move on to the second part of our interview. It's with Mark Pauls from FirstStep. As we know, and if you haven't listened to the first part of the interview, make sure you do that. Listen to that from last week. Mark and his team at FirstStep do amazing work helping children in the Havering community. So definitely check that out, and let's listen to the interview.
And one of the challenges that there are from very early on is that they're meeting with people who want to tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
Tell them what's right, what's wrong, what will work, what won't work, and nobody listens enough. And that's what we do, is we seek to listen, and people often tell us, and it's been going on for nearly 33 years, so there must be some truth in it, with successive different staffing teams over that period of time, is that FirstStep has a little bit of fairy dust. And somehow finds the way of sprinkling that into the situation. And yes, you're right, is that people do, when they've arrived in Holland and they get used to it, Holland's never going to be Italy.
No, true.
It's different. And the pace of life may be a bit slower. And there may not be gondolas, but perhaps there's fields of daffodils, and perhaps in time you start to appreciate some of the benefits of what
Holland gives.
Holland offers. However, it will never, and I've got it here. It will, and the pain will never ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very significant loss. And that's what we do, is that we're not trying to give platitudes to people that says, look on the bright side, it could have been worse, or this. What we're actually is, we are recognizing that pain, and we're working with them in the pain to actually, and they are the parents, the families are just so aggressively protected of their child, which is wonderful to see.
Well, it's a bond of love regardless of where the kid is, isn't it?
It is.
I suppose the other thing is that adaptation and recognising that it is different. I mean, personally, I like Holland. I think Holland's an amazing country, but recognizing that difference takes time. So I suppose the question that springs to mind is, typically, do you work with the families all the way through till the kids are 5, or does it stop and start? How does it work?
That varies depending on the services we're offering. But I have to tell you, can't say this too loud because we're not under the terms of our lease supposed to do this. But actually, you never leave from First Step. But the work that carries on is much more relational. So we're effectively 0 to 5, and what we do is we work to get to do ourselves out of a job, because we are looking to maximize what we can do. We know that if we can, the biggest impact we can have is to enable the families to regain control of their family, because at the outset it all feels so out of control. And they say to us, "You've made such a difference to me. You've done this for my family, that for the family." We say, we have your child here perhaps for a couple of hours a week. Who has them the rest of the time? Who's the person that's up in life? And so we work with that. So it's intensively. I suppose there's a couple of different levels. I mentioned that some come before, very few. Some come after about 4 months. Then from about 11, 12 months onwards, we start to get a trickle of children coming in who have got social communication difficulties because the parents are spotting that
they recognise it as they get older.
And then you start to pick up some with global development delay and things like that. So they're coming into us on an ongoing basis. Generally, I suppose the peak time for kids coming in is around about 15 months. Sometimes it's longer. I was talking to a dad last week, and he had got a daughter who is fairly clearly, she's definitely got social communication difficulties and will almost certainly be diagnosed as autistic. And he said that they, for quite a long while, didn't really want to admit the problem, that they were, people say, "Oh, they'll grow out of it. They're just difficult, strong-willed," and things like that. And the sadness is for us is when they are not with us from that length of time, that they've carried that pain and loneliness on a lot further. And I talked to Dad, and Dad's a very successful person in business. And I said to him, "How does it feel for those changes and to the fact that you're very unlikely to have an Oxbridge child now?" And he said, he said, "We had to come to terms with that because as parents, we've all got such ambitions for our kids."
Aspirations,
And so what we start to do, and you've already alluded to this, Chris, is that what we talk about is sometimes we use the phrase that the children achieve their potential, but that's quite hard because I'm never quite sure how you measure potential. But what we talk about is children achieving meaningful outcomes. So for them, that they're hitting through to something, that life is manageable, the child is content, is happy. Of course, there'll be meltdowns and problems like that along the way. And that journey with us continuing to support them, walking alongside them, can go on for as long as is necessary. And quite often, we will, I think it was year before last. It's hard because with lockdown, we lost 2 years really, haven't we?
Yeah.
Kids have disappeared. But she came in and the son had been with us and he was now 19 and he had just transitioned from children's services to adult services. And Mum came back to us and she said, "I've got such problems trying to sort my way through this. And I thought if there's one lot of people that can help me, it's First Step." And came back in because that relationship still stands.
No. So, I suppose the other thing is as well is part of the process for parents. And as you say, kids are with you, I know, 2 hours a week, or maybe a bit longer, but probably not the majority of the time. I suppose part of it is educating parents to do the right things. So talk to me about how that happens at FirstStep.
Okay, so the entrance into our work comes through our what we call family services. And so it would start off initially with Debbie, who is my amazing early years work leader, family support leader, and she would do a one-on-one interview with the parent and the child, and to just try and get an understanding, to seal, to feel, to understand, and to get to know the child and the mum and dad. Often the parents are very worried because the child's active, noisy, uncooperative. And that's probably the time that a little bit of fairy dust first gets sprinkled, because I think in 90% of all first visits, Debbie manages to do something with the child that the parents have never seen happen before. And I mean, I come from a training background and have done some behavioural training. And what we always used to say is that there's 4 steps to learning. One is to see that it can actually be done. Second step is to break it down into its component parts so it's replicable. Then the third step is try. And then the 4th step is practice, practice, practice. So what we're seeking to do from the off is not to wow the parents such that they feel even more inadequate than they did in the first step. Is to say, well, yeah, I mean, I saw that, let's say, Harry came in and he immediately went for the blue car. He wasn't interested in anything else other than the blue car. Debbie will hone into that and be saying, well, why the blue car? There's something about it. So she will use that potentially as a motivator. If they like noisy toys, she'll use the noisy toys.
Okay.
And what we're perhaps seeing, and sitting in from the outside, we see things that the parents don't realise.
And highlight it.
Absolutely. And then so what we're looking for in those early stages is, what are the triggers to meltdown and problems, and what are the motivators? And now you're on your way, because, you know, we all know that, you know, if we want to get one of our kids in the car or grandchildren, that it's a hell of a lot easier if they know they're going to McDonald's than if you're taking them somewhere they don't want to go.
Yeah, it's
So
about managing the environment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And making sure that you're in a position. It was funny because I'm not normally a big McDonald's fan, but I went for, when I was training for the marathon, I went for a long training run and stopped at, I mean, it was my longest one. It was 22 miles,
right?
And stopped at mile 19 for a McDonald's banana milkshake.
Okay,
Literally the best banana milkshake I've ever had, Mark. Because I think it might have been the 19-mile run before, to be honest.
And I bet you took it down in one gulp, didn't you?
Well, look, the excuse that I'm using is that I needed the sugar, and I've probably burnt quite a lot of calories, so I could probably afford to have a banana milkshake. So it's all good. Now, what I loved when I was doing the research for this interview, and I mean, full disclosure to everybody listening to the podcast, I've been to see the work that Mark does. I've been into the venue, seeing those kids develop, learn and grow face to face. And as you say, Mark, how challenging it can be for both the parents and the people teaching kids was inspirational. It was an amazing thing to see. And I think, you know, what you've done on your website is highlight some of those stories. So talk to me a little bit about the story that you think best describes the work you do, or one of the family stories that effectively you think, you know what, that shows the impact we make to families' lives.
Yeah, it's difficult because you've seen that there's 19 on the website, and a lot of those are now about to be updated. I think if I can share 2 with you, because it will show a couple of different points. One is very selfish and self-indulgent, because I hadn't long been at FirstStep. And it was I started on the 20th of April, and there was a half-term holiday in May, and all of the early years team were on holiday, and a parent arrived at the door with their child in their arms for an appointment that hadn't been properly logged. So the choice was that either we sent her away or she had to content herself as being with the oily rag rather than the engineer.
Right.
So we went for that option, his story is on the website.
I mean, I think you're doing yourself down. I mean, like, you turned up smarter than most of our interviewees. I wouldn't call yourself an oily rag, Mark. I think.
Well, a lot of people have called me a lot worse. Anyway, so this was little Owen, and he's on the website. You can read his story on there. He's now actually I think is coming up to 7. About 7. And he was tiny lad. He was about 2 at the time, 21 months, I think he was, and he was on mum's hip. He was being investigated for dwarfism. Because he was so small, but he also had no muscle tone, so he couldn't be sat down, because if he sat down he would just topple over. And mum was they had no real answer to what the condition was, so lots of diagnosis going on. And mum came in, and I'm sure that she wouldn't mind me saying this. Well, she wrote it in a story, so I she said it publicly. Was that we had this conversation, and she laughed a bit, she cried a bit, she laughed a bit, and she cried a bit. And she said that in that 45 minutes that we spent together, she expressed fears, hopes, disappointments that she had never articulated to anybody before.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of fairy dust that goes on. And
it goes back to what you said about just being listened to.
Yeah.
Somebody to just say, we understand, and we want to understand how you're feeling.
Yeah. And she was clutching Owen, sitting on her hip. And he was interested. He wasn't badly behaved. Lovely little lad. Piercing back then. He had very blonde hair, piercing blue eyes. Gorgeous young man. And mum said to me, she said, but we don't need FirstStep.
Right.
We can look after him himself, and actually we believe that we can look after him better than anybody else. And I said, I totally agree.
Yeah.
There's nobody better than the parents to look after. I said, but even though you don't want to use our service, while you're here, let's just take you on a walk around. And it was harder because the building was empty.
Yeah.
And we took him into one of the playrooms, and I said to mum, I said, well, why don't we sit him down on the carpet and prop him up with some cushions? And that was so fortuitous, because we sat him down, and you probably don't remember, but in the middle of the playroom there's a big mat, and there's a circle of animals around it.
Right.
And Owen sat down, and he looked around the room, showing great interest in it, and then he spotted an elephant around the circle, and he launched himself towards the elephant. And mum said to me, she said, I guess I'm not right. Owen has decided that he does want to be here because of stimuli here that isn't outside. And that was the start of an amazing day. And I can't meet Owen, and I still see him from time to time, without reflecting back to that day, and how on the surface of it, I mean, mum had taken a 3-year leave of absence to look after the son from work. She never went back to work in the end. She was totally devoted. She was a wonderful, caring mum with him. And mum just became part of a community of people. And did you ever watch the Breakfast Mums video on our website?
Yeah, watched that. It's really good.
Well,
yeah.
She's one of those mums, and was one of the spontaneous leaders. And Owen is at mainstream school now. He's walking, he's talking. There are some issues there which still run through, but it normalised the situation for the family, and made life so much easier for the whole family. And a mum to this day, she's moved away. She lives in Colchester now, but she's still an avid supporter. In the Golf Day programme where we use some of these stories, she rewrote the story for Owen, and he's now so strong.
I mean, one interesting point there is a parent saying, "Well, look, I think we're going to do this on our own. We don't think we need your help." Do you think there's a reticence, particularly with kids who use the services of FirstStep, the parents of kids who use your services, to want to do it themselves? And do you think people, what's your impression of that?
Well, what I would say to you on that, Chris, is that we know that there is a significant number of people whose first visit to FirstStep comprises of getting in their car, driving to FirstStep, coming through the gates, driving around the car park and back out, and we don't see them for another 4 months.
Right.
Okay, because coming to FirstStep and accepting help from FirstStep means that you've passed through the first of many gates, hoops, whatever you want to call it, and you've acknowledged to yourself, which is the biggie, that there is something that you need, that they need help.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the question is that when you've got an extremely vulnerable child, can you trust anybody else to look after them? Most of these families, the child has never been with anybody else in the whole of their life. So they're actually holding on to that child and saying, "Do I trust you? Can you look after him? Can I leave him?" And which is why all the early sessions, all the family support is done in family support groups, so the parents are there with the child. And what we're seeking to do is model behaviours. There's some people who are a little bit further along the road, and they can share their experience. There's other people who are just coming through the door and are extremely nervous, and so there's an awful lot of peer support that goes on.
Gotcha.
And people make lifelong friendships. So I don't think they're being mistrusting. I don't think they're being, "I'll do it my way, I can do it better." I think there's a lot of fear and this feeling of, can I entrust my child to somebody else? And for us, it's the children that make the decision. Because I'm going a bit off subject here, forgive me, but when I came for interview at FirstStep, I think it was a real godsend that my second interview was at 9:30. So I was sitting in reception when the children arrived, and I had two burning questions in my mind. My wife's comment to me was, "You can't work with under fives, you'll tread on them and squash them," as being one thing. And the other thought I had in my mind was, I wonder if it's going to be miserable working with disability. And as I sat there, I saw kids coming across the playground. Some were carried, some were being pushed in chairs, others were dragging themselves along using a walking frame. And as they were arriving outside the door, they were throwing their coats off with great smiles on their face because they had arrived. And I saw that FirstStep was a place of joy for both the parents and the child. And it was great because I actually had to change my presentation. And it was fortunate that one of the slides I had used was one of Stephen Hawking's comments, which is, "Where there's life, there's hope." And I think that's where it works. So I don't think they're being unrealistically protective. I just think they're being incredibly responsible.
I understand. That's the second part of the FirstStep interview with Mark Halls. There will be a third part because we just chatted forever, basically.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme.
I know, but you know what? It's part of the reason I love doing these podcasts, because you start having conversations about one thing and then it just expands to a broader and wider conversation about life in general, about people's interest and why they do what they do, and it's always good to do that. So Mark's a very interesting guy, so great to chat to him. And now it's your favourite bit of the show. Don't milk your part. Go on then.
'Tis the end of another podcast, but the end is never really the end, because the end is always the beginning of something entirely new. And this week, it's the answers to the last week's question of the podcast, like it is every other week.
I said don't milk your part. And what did you do? You milked your part.
I milked my part.
God, you milked a cow's part there. Now I'm going to give you two more chances, because I gave Russ a chance, and now I'm going to give you a chance. Firstly, do it as enthusiastically as you can.
I think I already did that version.
More enthusiastic then.
All right. Tis the end of another podcast, but the end is never truly the end because the end is always the beginning.
Don't grab me leg. Why are you grabbing me leg? That was weird.
I need to balance my
I said enthusiastic, not. Well, that's weird. She's grabbing me there. She's grabbing me there. She's doing it. Then,
It's because as I was doing it, I was leaning back and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so we've had enthusiastic. That requires a knee grab, apparently. Let's do as unenthusiastic as possible. Off you go.
Right, it's over. Tis the end, I guess.
Tis the end.
It's all done now.
But let's do last week's question of the podcast. And last week's question of the podcast is, apparently Sophie, who's just walked into the room, can do an unenthusiastic tis the end. Let's hear it.
Tis the end.
I don't even know if you ever heard that.
No.
You just went tis the end.
Tis the end.
Anyway, last week's question of the podcast is what cultural icons from the history should all kids learn about? Martha Lawson on Twitter said this is retro, but Buster Keaton was born 126 years ago and he is still amazing. Now, Buster Keaton was a stuntman who effectively just
You showed me the video.
no, he's not alive because he'd be 126, wouldn't he? Did all his own stunts and was like just the superstar of silent
Just a bit
cinema.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean the fact that I love about Buster Keaton so much is, as a 3-year-old child, he learnt his trade by his mum and dad slinging him about on stage, which was amazing. We had loads from Facebook. John Cook said every kid should learn about the Carry On films. Lauren Sweeney said Del and Rodney from Only Fools and Horses and On the Buses. Eve Keith said Rick Mail. I'd teach every kid about Rick Mail. Victor Sack said Inspector Clouseau and Queso. Have you ever seen a Pink Panther detective film?
Pink Panther?
Yeah.
No.
Look them up. They're brilliant. Genius. Larry Knight reckons every child should learn Tintin. We have a bit of
Tintin
Tintin.
stall at Comic-Con.
I did that. I love a bit of Tintin. Samantha Strong said Rainbow. Zippy, George and Bungle. Al McCann said Oliver Postgate, and I don't even know who that is, so I have to look that up. Roberta White said the Rolling Stones, and that's the mother-in-law, so she loves a bit of the Rolling Stones. Lisa Scott said Mr. Ben. Jeff Hilliard said Only Fools and Horses. Steve Stan said any cartoon from the 60s or 70s, Tom and Jerry, Bugs and Daffy, Hong Kong Phooey. Glenn Mays said Laurel Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, the Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers, Abbott and Costello, or any slapstick
I got
comedy.
a bit confused by the Marx Brothers because I was just thinking Karl Marx?
No. Carl and his brother Steve Marx, the less famous Marxist.
Sorry that I know more about communism than comedy.
Oh, the Marx Brothers are amazing. Sandra Connington said Malcolm and Wise and the Peanut and Charlie Brown cartoons. Joe Jones said Harold Lloyd. Ian Fraser said Benny Hill. Coral Knight said Malcolm and Wise. Alison Charles said Bill and Bet the Flower Pot Man. I mean, the funny thing is, you can tell how old people are based on what they think kids should learn today. Dave Forsdyke said all kids should learn about the heavy metal band Iron Maiden.
That's fair.
Fair.
Iron Maiden, good.
The two Ronnies, Men Behaving Badly and Lenny Henry. Stuart Winder said every child should know about Muhammad Ali. Actually, that's a good shout. And Robbie Bowl said every child should learn about Lauren Hardy. And on that note, that, my friends, is the end of another podcast. Have a lovely week. We'll see you next week on the Kindness Project. And Russell, before we go, I want your most and least enthusiastic bye.
Bye.
Was that your most enthusiastic?
That's how I feel.
Well, give me your most enthusiastic.
It's goodbye from me. Goodbye from me.
Oh,
Goodbye
it's
from her.
goodbye from me. It's been Ronnie Barker there. Give me your least and then your most.
Fine.
Bye. And your most.
No, then you're putting pressure on me now.
I'll do mine, and then we're going to finish like she's not under enough pressure already with Charlotte's most enthusiastic buy.
Okay.
My least enthusiastic buy is buy. And my most enthusiastic buy is buy. I'm just shouting in my podcast listeners' ears. Sorry about that. No, that was just my most shouting. Let me try. I think that shocked Charlotte. Yeah, she just had a complete fit because I just shouted bye. Bye. That was my most aggressive goodbye. Just imagine doing that in real life. Bye. Right, let me try enthusiastic again. Goodbye. That was like a child's entertainer. I don't know what's going on. And on that note, we are going to end with the most enthusiastic goodbye. The pressure is on now. Don't feel it. Go on, give me a goodbye.
See you later.